If you're a small business owner and you're currently struggling to grow your business or even just to see consistent revenue throughout the year, then in this video, I want to go through a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber and some of the key points I've learned from this book and how it applies to all types of small business owners, regardless of what shape or size of business you have. This massively is applicable to micro, service-based and product-based businesses that are like tradesmen or handyman, or whether you run more of a kind of higher margin service or like consulting type of business. Regardless of what type of business you have, this is designed for small business owners to help them realize how to get out of the trap of being a small business, and why this book is called The E-Myth, being the entrepreneur myth. So I want to explain some of the key points now, and then I'm going to actually go on to some of the kind of psychological barriers I think are in the way for a lot of small businesses. So let's get straight into it. So I want to start with a statistic, and it's basically the fact that most of, the world, at least most first world countries, most developing countries, to be fair, actually, I'd say it's most countries in the world, especially developing countries, where 90% of the economy is run by small businesses. And actually, of that 90%, around 99% of those small businesses are the kind of tradesmen, the handymen. So most of the economy is run by the plumbers, the electricians, the window cleaners, whatever it might be, the people that kind of come around your house to do general service or product-based things. Generally, the people that they make the world go round and they make the economy work. And it's only really a micro percentage of those small businesses that are businesses making maybe over a couple hundred or even a few 100,000 per year in pounds, dollars, or euros, whatever currency it might be. And that's a crazy statistic, really, because, we think there are maybe hundreds of thousands or even millions of bigger businesses, but actually the economy is run by these micro businesses that are just one-man bands or family-run businesses. So some of the key points from this video is the fact that actually most of these small businesses are the technicians, as the author of this book, The E-Myth, Revisited, he refers to them. And technicians are, again, the plumbers, the electricians, they are the handyman that comes around the house or your store, whatever it might be. And most of those business owners think that they have their own business, they've got this own empire and structure, when in reality, these businesses are no different than if they were working with somebody else doing the exact same type of job. It's just the fact that they now own their job and their position and their work. And to be fair, they might not even be making as much for most of them as they would be if they were employed by somebody. So there's actually the kind of conundrum and sticky situation. Most people, when they start their own business or get into kind of becoming a plumber, electrician, even starting some sort of online business, you end up doing, obviously at the beginning, more work than you would be doing if you were just employed by somebody. But you end up making barely as much, even as much at all, as someone that's employed by somebody. And yet you've got all of the workload, all of the stress, and all the maintenance of running the business still. You still have to manage accounts and all this sort of stuff. So some of the key points is realizing that there are three roles that Michael E. Gerber talks about in this book. And that is the fact that there's obviously the 90%, which is the technician. Again, most tradesmen, most handymen. Then you have the managers, which is getting up to above the level of kind of the electricians, the general handymans. You're getting to the point where you have, your pubs, your restaurants, your clubs, your bars, any business that is basically a larger team. Anybody if it's over a few employees, this is kind of the manager level, where you actually have the business owner that is managing maybe 3, 5, 10, 12 members of staff. So again, small pubs, hotels, restaurants, clubs, bars, like basically any of these larger businesses. And of course, this is only kind of the 8 to 10% of small businesses, because it's that much smaller minority compared to every other kind of technician, the tradesman, handyman level of business. And then of course, the last 1% is the entrepreneur within this small business, 90% of the economy. And that is, they're still large businesses compared to like the technicians, but they are nowhere near, Bill Gates level. They're not Amazon, they're not Google, they're not even in the UK, they're not like Sky or BT, or in the US like Comcast, or they're not these larger businesses that are maybe worth hundreds of millions, even billions. But they maybe make a few million a year, maybe up to 10, 20 million a year. And normally those entrepreneurs actually run multiple small businesses just because they love the game of making these small businesses that maybe make a couple of million profit a year each or something. So they're still a small business, but they make up a much smaller percent, probably even less than 1% or 0.5% of all small businesses. So we first want to talk about technician roles, because this is obviously where the business owner is doing all the hands-on work. You're probably the electrician, the plumbing electrician, and doing the trade work. And your focus is on the day-to-day tasks and not the long-term health of the business. And of course, the trouble with having to do the work and run a business is all of your time goes to just the work itself, fixing someone's plumbing, fixing someone's electrics, or whatever it might be, or whatever the industry or trade you're in. That ends up becoming 100% of your day and 100% of your work. And of course, you struggle to fit in all of those tasks to do with trying to manage the business and maintain it, focus on accounts, focus on trying to do anything other than the day-to-day work. And that is why most technicians, as the trades, as the handymen, stay in that role and end up just not growing their business. And then of course we've got the managers, which they've reached a point where, they have a small team. It might even be a few small teams, but either way, they own a large pub or a restaurant or a club or a bar or whatever type of business requires multiple people, normally more than just like a small family. They maybe make a few million a year at most because they've maybe got a couple of locations. Each location maybe makes $500,000, $1 million a year, whatever it might be. They're at the point where they have a team now, and their entire time is taken up by trying to manage the bits that they can and do the bits they can, still do some of the work or most of the work, half the work at least. But they now have to do accounts. They've got to do all of the next level of growth. And they are stuck at that level of growth because they haven't yet reached the point or the capacity where they can hire someone to take on half of their work for them and then become the entrepreneur or the next level of manager. Excuse the voice breaks. But that's why the manager is stuck where they're at. They're stuck at managing now and still doing half the work. And this is where the entrepreneur has taken that next step up from the manager, because the manager is someone that has that business. They're making a few $100,000 a year, maybe a couple of million a year, a couple of locations maybe, but they're stuck doing half the work, and then the other half of their work is managing and not being able to get ahead at all ever. And that's where the entrepreneur has got to that next level, and they now maybe have the capacity to, start a new business every few years, or invest in this and invest in that. And they have the teams, they maybe even have a management team to manage all of their companies, but they haven't quite got it to the point where they are scaling each of their businesses, or one or two of them, beyond the point they're currently at. And that's why that small level entrepreneur that's still within the small business category ends up staying that small business entrepreneur. They never really get above 30, 40, 50 million a year. And their income only really grows, or their net worth in this case, is only really growing because of inflation, in the same way that the tradesman has to only increase his prices because of cost of living and all that sort of stuff. So in this case, the reason the entrepreneur hasn't actually grown to be a hyper level entrepreneur making hundreds of millions or even billions a year is purely because they're stuck trying to scale each business rather than trying to focus on one in particular or hire management to actually scale each one. And they're just kind of focused on growing loads of small businesses. So now I want to get to the difference between working on your business and working in the business, because this is kind of the next part that Michael talks about in his book, E-Myth, because the biggest kind of paradigm shift I had with understanding this book is I understood the concepts of these, but these are just kind of labels that are being given and applied to the concepts I already understood. And understanding that, to scale a business, you need to step back from your day-to-day tasks and create systems that can run without you. So imagine your business as a franchise model where everything is repeatable and scalable, because Michael here doesn't just talk about everybody should franchise their business and become the next the next McDonald's or the next, like B&Q or whatever it might be. Name a franchise, go with that. But, he understands that you want to have a look at the franchise model where you create systems and processes, you create different procedures and understand different, the ways the business works, so that, a great quote I learned from another kind of small level entrepreneur, he's worth maybe 10, 20, 30 million, again, like runs multiple small businesses, hasn't quite got out of the big business if he wants to, that is, James Sinclair. He says that he always runs his businesses like he's going to sell them tomorrow. And that's because, or even just sell them in general. And that's similar kind of paradigm to running it like a franchise, because in that case, you don't actually want to build a business to sell it tomorrow, or you don't want to turn a business into a franchise. But the idea of, okay, well, if I was to sell my business tomorrow, if I wanted to sell it so that someone could take it over and it's a good investment for them, or a good return on their investment from investing in the business, or I want to take on new people, most people suffer the roadblock of, if they are not in a franchise model or not trying to, create repeatable, scalable systems, they're stuck with the headache of trying to take on someone new, or the headache of trying to build an entirely new team, or then try a new system and try an entirely new process. And that's why most people don't scale, because especially for like a tradesman or a small business like that, they're not even thinking in terms of processes and systems. They're just thinking in terms of their day-to-day job and maybe how to take someone on. But in order to be able to take someone on in the first place, you need to create systems so that you can actually continue taking people on. Like McDonald's, if they didn't have any system, how the hell would they scale and make dozens and dozens of locations every single year? Because they've got that system in place. Again, I'm not saying everybody needs to take on like a multi-billion dollar kind of franchise idea. So the next thing is the turnkey revolution. And this is the key to building a business that isn't relying on you, on just you, because you need processes in place so that you can run the business and not just be like the founder and be the person doing all the work all the time. Because in this case, what it means by turnkey is that when you create systems, when you create a scalable system, regardless of what you want to do with the business, you have the options. And that's kind of what I preach to anybody, clients I talk to, anybody I talk to really that wants to work on and scale their business, because I'm not suggesting that everybody wants to build some massive conglomerate monopoly in the world. But if you want a business to be any shape or size, this is how you do it. You create a system and a set of systems and processes that allow you to have the option to do whatever you want to be doing in your business. Do you want to hire new people? Do you want to bring on a management team? Do you want to take off some hats in the business, focus less on the day-to-day, focus on scaling it? Do you want to set a target of reaching double, triple, 5x, 10x your income or the profit in the business over the next 3 to 5 years or whatever it might be? And if you want those goals, this is exactly how to do it. This is, the process of creating systems and processes that allow you to just scale wherever you want to get to. Because these concepts are simple in theory, but, many small business owners struggle to implement them. So let's get on to some of the psychological barriers I was going to be talking about. So as you can see here, most of them are things to do with the fear of letting go, imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs about wealth and comfort zones. And I know these might sound a bit woo-woo, a bit, whatever it might be, or a bit kind of airy-fairy, whatever you kind of think of these. I want to keep this as grounded in kind of day-to-day business as possible, because a lot of the reason that small businesses don't scale, myself included, but again, I'm so grateful and glad I'm still young and doing this for the first time, is that if you're an older person, I can say older person, no disrespect to anybody watching, but if you're older than 20s or 30s and you're trying to work on your business, and you maybe even not even considering scaling it or growing it to any capacity, because a lot of the time you actually have had bad experiences in the past, or you even fear the idea of trying to push beyond wherever you've currently been before. Because most small business owners in the past have tried to hire someone before, hire an extra team member, hire a PA, hire a VA, whatever it might be, virtual assistants, personal assistants, those are. And so most of them have had these 1 or 2 bad experiences before, and then that stops them from ever pushing forward. So let's go straight to the fear of letting go. So many business owners believe I have to do everything myself, but that only keeps you stuck doing tasks that can be delegated, because I've seen this with family and friends myself. They have a perfect opportunity to grow the business, not scale it to crazy heights or whatever, but just get a couple more employees or team members this month or this year to be able to save a load of time, take the workload off of their shoulders so they can focus on what they want to focus on. But instead, they have this mentality of, I'm the only person that can do it as good as I can do it, so I don't want to employ anybody else to do it. And that's why those people are, to be honest, better off working a job in a big company. Because if you think you can do everything yourself, you're going to do nothing yourself. If you think you can do everything yourself, then you're going to get nothing done, because ultimately businesses can only scale, and at least what I've been learning, again, I'm still very new to this process, but businesses can only scale when you have people the right people in the right places. So if you are just trying to do everything yourself, you're going to get nothing done. So that is the first thing to realize, is that if you're trying to do everything yourself, you will fail undoubtedly. So the second one is imposter syndrome. So simple things like the fear of not being good enough or not having the right credentials, not holding, holds many business owners back from taking action to grow. And I'd say imposter syndrome and this whole idea, like I said a minute ago, of this idea that if you have done it before, it's not going to work again. Or if you've had a bad thing happen in the past, it's going to happen again and again and again. And this is the law of small numbers, which I talked about in a video before. And I think this is one of the key things that holds most small business owners back, because whether it's a tradesman, whether it's a slightly bigger business, whatever it might be, you have had 1 or 2 bad experiences before, even a few bad experiences, and you think that every single future bad experience is going to be as bad as those ones. But again, it's just the law of averages, the law of statistics, whatever way you want to look at it. It's impossible for every single experience in your life to be that bad if you keep actually trying and doing it. And often people just get one or two bad apples out of an entire bunch of people, and they think that every single future person they might hire is going to be that bad, the process is going to be as difficult, whatever it might be. And that's why most people don't do anything. And it doesn't just apply to people, it applies to systems, processes, like tests, experiments, whatever you're trying to do. As soon as people try it once or twice, they hate it, they think every single future time is going to be like that. So bear that in mind when you're trying to do this. And then the last two really, again, not to sound too spiritual or woo-woo about this, but simply having limiting beliefs about wealth. Beliefs like, a lot of people, thanks to the news and the media, and again, don't want to go down a rabbit hole or anything about this, but most people naturally hate rich people because of the way the media, the news and entertainment portrays them. And I challenge you to search for a positive news article or program, show, drama, whatever it might be on the TV or on the internet, where a wealthy person, like an entrepreneurial person, is shown in a positive light. I promise you, you won't find them. You'll find some of the endeavors and philanthropic and activities they've done good, but they will always paint the wealthy rich person in the negative light. They've either achieved wealth by being narcissistic and bad and done bad things and screw people over. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of why that's the case, but that's why most people subconsciously think that, or even consciously think it day-to-day life and see it in the news and hate on more rich people. But then again, it might be the same type. You might even be going to buy a lottery ticket, Euro Millions ticket at the end of the year, or the end of the week or the month. So you need to realize when you have something you're being given and, seen in the news or in entertainment and media, and then you look at the other end of the spectrum where you actually want a successful business, but you don't connect the two and realize that actually what I'm being shown in the media is actually projecting into the reason I can't grow my business. And they might sound worlds apart and you don't understand. It seems stupid in some sort of spiritual theory. But I promise, a great thing I learned from an old friend of mine is that there's two sides to every belief. And again, I don't want to go down some sort of spiritual rabbit hole, but if you watch the news and you end up realizing that you actually just don't like wealthy people or rich people and you believe it's all just luck and guidance or whatever it might be in their fate and they all choose this and they're all bad people and screw people over, that is also why you refuse and haven't found the best way to grow your business yet. That's just a fact. So that is some of the main limiting beliefs. Now the last one here is comfort zones, because this is a big one for most people. Most people they don't want to stay and they don't want to leave what is currently comfortable, even if it's painful, because people would rather choose a pain they know than the pain they don't know. And it's exactly why I've been in the same place for a long time in my life. People like comfort zones, even if there is discomfort, even if there is pain at the moment, people will still choose familiar pain over unfamiliar pain. So if you can understand that in order to grow yourself with any sort of personal development thing, although business is personal development, I personally believe if you're trying to grow the business to any level you want to get to, you got to realize there's going to be growing pains, either for yourself, for the team, whatever it might be. You've got a couple of members of staff right now, but you don't want to have to grow the business because other people might not sit in well with the business, but you've got to create a whole new culture, whatever it might be. Those are the growing pains, whether it's personal, whether it's in the business, in company structure, whatever it might be. So that is why you want to focus on really understanding what it takes to get to where you want to get to and seeing why everything you currently have is maybe worth sacrificing or modifying to get to that stage. So again, I know this sounds simple, but it's hard to break free of these barriers. So I encourage you to reflect on these and just kind of ask yourself what's stopping you from actually scaling the business or getting to any kind of target revenue or profit you're trying to get to in your business, or even target company shape or size, because ultimately not just a number on a screen or a profit margin or whatever it might be, but actually like the type of business you want. Do you want to change, business model? Do you want to start a service? Do you want to start selling a product, whatever it might be? And annoying, my hair going everywhere right now, really annoying me. But that's why you really want to focus on all of those, because that's what's going to really help you go from exactly where you are right now to exactly where you want to be, or even where you didn't even imagine you could get to in the first place. So I hope all these points have helped, and I just actually want to quickly dive into and kind of end point here and explain. Obviously, if you've gone through these points and you've obviously seen the points I was going through at the beginning with the difference between the technician and obviously the turnkey, like I was showing you, the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, really taking those into account and realizing what stage in business you're at with those and which one, is, which one is your position currently now, so you can work on getting out of that position you're in and figuring out a roadmap to get to wherever you want to get to. And if you do want a roadmap, I've actually linked a free 5-step blueprint below, especially for small business owners, to help you grow your revenue. So that's linked below, a free blueprint downloaded, and then a download link below. And if you generally just want more help in growing your business, trying to scale it, get to a target or desired revenue or profit margin, and like if you've got a goal for profit margins this year, or a goal for what profit you want to get to, or revenue you want to get to, or target customers or client level, or even like any kind of shape or size of business you want to try and create a new department, work on a new product or service, then let me know in the comments below. And also feel free to look at a link below to book a free one-to-one with myself or a member of my team. We can go through your exact situation to see, you know, whether you are the technician, the manager, or the entrepreneur, and see how we can specifically work on your situation to see if there's any possibility that we can help you and scale your business with some of the marketing we do for our clients at the moment. So I hope that helps. I just wanted to kind of quickly go through the key points and some of those psychological barriers, but nonetheless, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.